Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. It is I, Brother Tobias, and we are close to the actual official launch of 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000, which means now that basically everything is out, all of the points, all of the rules, all of the everything all around, I will give you a review of every rule we have to cover in order for you to play Warhammer 40,000 on June 20th. This time, I will be diving into the faction pack. Now, this has been out for a few weeks now, but I wanted to wait to review this until we had the full context for everything. So, here we go. This will be divided into two parts. I will not be going after the individual detachments or data sheets unless it's something completely new, and I will just mention something if I can see it or if it's something that is worth bringing up. So if there's a new data sheet, I will look at it, but I will not be covering every single rules change unless it is part of the rules update over here, which is where I will be going for that kind of thing. So we start out with the one detachment point detachment. So in 11th edition, you build your army at a 2000 point game with 3 detachment points. Detachments are worth different points, and the ones I'm going to show here are 1 detachment point detachments. So you can take these in addition to other detachments, or you can take all 3 of these together and make them one army, basically. That is how the cookie crumbles, and we will start with the Fulguris Task Force. Anti-grav speeders hit the foe with thunderous firepower at deadly velocities. This is the land speeder detachment. This can be included into other detachments, which is including it's right over here. We basically everything except for the Gladius and the Stormlands is 2 detachment points, and Blades of Ultramar, because that is also the Gladius basically. So everything else, Vanguard, Spearhead, Iron Storm, Reclamation Force, all of these can take one of those in addition, and then you take the Force Disposition and the actual rules. So the force disposition of the Fulguris task force is disruption, I believe. Yes, it is. It is disruption, which is the primary mission that is all about doing actions all around the board and on objectives and setting up some place, which is one of the weaker dispositions. But thankfully, since you are allying this into another detachment, that could mean you don't actually have to take the disruption primary. I'll talk more about primaries in the chapter approved review video, so stay on for that. Detachment rules: Sky Strike. Friendly land speeder models have speeder, so basically just everything that is a land speeder, storm speeder, all of them just get the speeder keyword. For us Ultramarines, this is everything. We don't have any special speeders like the Dark Angels, which don't get rules here, but that is what it is. In your first movement phase, friendly speeder units can make an ingress move. This means we can use Deep Strike essentially to come out of reserves. Because all of our speeders have Deep Strike, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, even the Land Speeder has Deep Strike. So you can just Deep Strike all of your speeders on turn 1. This is obviously fantastic because that basically means you just deploy them off the board and you can just get them in wherever you want. There's basically no downside to doing this unless there is some spot you are more that you have an easier time reaching by just flying 14 inches from your deployment zone, but that is basically what that is. But yeah, so you can make reserve moves on turn 1. Note it says your first movement phase, so even though rapid ingress has been FAQ'd to not be working like that, this also means, again, you cannot rapid ingress on turn 1. It is your first turn. Enhancements. We have some upgrades here. Upgrades are special enhancements that don't count as a singular thing you can buy. So if there's an upgrade tag on it, it goes on any unit in your army, not just characters, as long as the keyword is correct. And you can buy multiple of these. So we have two of them here. The Bellicose Weapon Spirits, a speeder only. You can reroll damage rolls and rolls to determine the attacks of a weapon. This is obviously good on the Hammer Strike, because even though the Hammer Strike doesn't have random shots, the Hammer Strike has multi-damage weapons on every profile. So you have d6 damage on the missile and melter, and you have d3 damage on the grenades. And also the Thunder Strike has d3 shots with his missiles, and then also has d6 shots with the last talent. So the Thunder Strike actually benefits from both of these rules here, which is pretty decent. Like, determining attacks is obviously always a bonus, and rerolling damage is pretty huge because you don't want to spend a command point on it. Then we have the Raptorial Coagitator Core, which goes on a speeder only, and the speeder ignores cover. This is amazing, and I will tell you why, because we have the points for these. Both of these are 15 points, so for the low price of 15 points, you can give any speeder you want, up to 3 times, I think. You can, because you can only take the same speeder 3 times. So you can just buy you have 4 enhancements still. Yeah, so you can take 4 technically. So 15 points, one of your speeders ignores cover. That's it. Obviously pretty good on the Hammer Strike, because the Hammer Strike disables cover. So if the Hammer Strike shoots something, the Hammer Strike now ignores cover for his own shots, and then everything else that is going to shoot at the target will also ignore cover. This is functionally a +1 to hit on your speeder, which is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, not exactly, because hitting on 2s would be better than on 3s, but most of the time you will be shooting something in cover, especially whenever it is a vehicle. Now you get 3 stratagems here. A Data Link Augury. When a friendly speeder is selected to shoot in the shooting phase, target that speeder, and you can select one enemy unit within 24, and that unit has +6 detection range. Which is pretty decent, because that means how do I say this? A speeder can spot an enemy to be visible from 21 inches away, which is pretty good, and it lasts until your speeder has shot, I believe, right? So so it applies to the speeder. Okay, so a speeder can jump up, and then that speeder has better detection range. So it doesn't actually buff your army in any way. So you can't make the detection range for your other stuff is pretty good, because as soon as the speeder shoots, because you are selecting it to shoot, the detection range goes down. Since vehicles can't really hide, this is not really that impressive, because the 2 speeders you will probably play have anti-tank weapons, and tank and vehicles are not hidden. Vehicles just get cover, which means this is probably not that useful. But hey, if there's a unit of, like, I don't know, if there are 3 eradicators on an objective, or like 3 8-bound or something, and they're hiding, you can probably blitz up within 21 and then try to kill them with Oath. But even then, the speeder only has 18 inches on most of its weapon, the Hammer Strike. So yeah, I don't know how useful this is going to be. Reactive Evasion. Your opponent's movement phase when an enemy unit ends a move within 8 inches of an unengaged speeder, so no speeder in melee. That speeder can make a normal move of d3 plus 3 inches. This is interesting because 2 things. One, it is an 8-inch reactive move, not a 9-inch reactive move, which is now the overall way reactive moves work. Basically, every reactive move in the game has changed to 8 inches, even like Kato Sicarius and the stratagem from Gladius and all of those kind of strats. They all changed to 8-inch reactive moves instead of 9-inch. Your unit makes a move of d3 plus 3 inches. This is amazing because it means minimum 4, and it is more likely to get 6. This is obviously pretty good because it means you can expose your speeder, and if your opponent has to move close to it because they want to score some kind of card or try and charge something else, or the speeder itself, you can just get out of harm's way, which is pretty good. And then we have the Anti-Grav Surge, end of the opponent's fighting phase. You can select one unengaged speeder and put it back into reserves. This is obviously really awesome, because this could also mean you can up down a speeder on turn 1. Because if you deploy your speeder on the board, I don't know why you would do that. Your opponent goes first and then ends the turn. You can pull the speeder up in reserve and then bring it back down because it is the first turn of the game for you. And then you can do that immediately. I don't know why you would do that, but it would work. It also helps you a lot with secondaries. The new land speeder is pretty cheap, I believe. It is like 100 points. Let me check that real quick. The land speeder, land speeder, land speeder. Where is it? Here it is. It is 95 points, which is honestly fine. I think if you run one or two of those land speeders in your list, they are moderately durable. They cost a bit more than your average skirmish piece, but it is also a bit tougher than your average skirmish piece, and I think that is completely fine. So yeah, having some speeders in your list obviously makes it a lot more likely to score cards like engage on all fronts or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. Is that even in the game? But something like the one where you have to be in your opponent's deployment zone and survive for a full turn or something. Those are actually really good. So yeah, overall, the Fulguris Task Force has a really, really good application. And that application, in my opinion, is the Reclamation Force, because Reclamation Force has no shooting buffs whatsoever. Reclamation Force is a melee detachment with some tricks. There's a bad reactive move, there's a way to make charges easier, there's some objective stickering and stuff. So there's all of that. You have a fallback shoot and charge, but you don't have an advance and shoot, and you don't have a way to make your ranged attacks hit better. So if you ally the Fulguris Task Force to Reclamation Force, you now get very fast moving vehicles. I know you can't advance and shoot, but your speeders can deep strike and they move 14-inch base. So that is obviously great. And they can strip cover, which then in turn means your shooting units you brought in your Reclamation Force now also ignore cover, which is a pretty good shooting buff. And of course, you have Oath of Moment. So I think this is a really, really good combination for Reclamation Force. Another way you could use this would be in the Vanguard, just to have more ways to go back into reserves, and because the Thunderstrike is also pretty good in Vanguard, because Centurions don't ignore cover, they just get +1 AP on the stratagem. So that would mean you can hit something on twos with the strat because you strip the cover, and then you hit on twos with the full rerolls, that kind of stuff. So that. The Fulguris Task Force. Next, we go to the Librarius Conclave. Important rider. The fact that the Librarius Conclave is here as a 1 DP detachment means the old Librarius Conclave is now out of date and is no longer applicable and playable in a game of Warhammer 40k. Just, I would like to remind everyone that that is what that is. So how does this actually work? This means the following. You get a detachment rule, Psychic Disciplines, and these are exactly the same as it used to be. At the beginning of the battle round, you select one of 5 rules, and they apply to all of your Psycho units. Biomancy makes all of your Psycho units 2 inches faster. Divination makes them reroll hits in wounds of 1. Pyromancy gives them +1 AP within 12. Telekinesis makes range attacks -1 strength. They removed the rider of higher toughness than things. So if you get shot by a strength 4 weapon, you debuff it to strength 3. That is honestly pretty good. Telepathy, you ignore modifiers to ballistic skill, weapon skill, and hit roll, which also means this is a ignore cover rule, effectively. You would just ignore cover. So, the Librarius Conclave has Recon as its disposition, and Recon is honestly not that bad. It is a bit difficult to use in Space Marines, because Recon requires you to have a lot of units, and all of your units have to be all over the board, doing up-down stuff, doing actions, and all of that kind of stuff. But I think putting the Librarius Conclave into the Vanguard Spearhead, because the Vanguard Spearhead is stuck. Oh no, it already has Recon. Never mind. Forget that. So yeah, you can put Recon into some sort of 2-point detachment that is stuck on Disruption, because Disruption is honestly a pretty bad bad primary. The only problem is the only disruption detachment we can play is the Stormlands, and the Stormlands has 3 points, so doesn't actually need to do anything here because disruption bad. So yeah, probably not gonna play recon, but if you figure out a way to recon successfully in Space Marines, tell me. Yeah, we have some enhancements, and they go on your librarian models. You don't have stratagems in this one. Instead, you have 5 enhancements. You can take all of these, of course, but you can take as many as you wish in terms of like up to 4. You can take. You don't have to run that many librarians. If you only take one librarian because you were completely happy with your 2 DP army, and now you get the 1 DP librarian is just for 1 good unit, completely fine. So here we go. Celerity works the same way as before. You can advance and charge, and if the Biomancy is active, you can also fall back and charge. This is obviously great for every detachment that does not have access to advance and charge. For example, Firestorm. Firestorm doesn't have access to advance and charge or fall back and charge, and this will obviously help. Reclamation Force has it, but doesn't. But it is a stratagem, so maybe you can save some points. Obviously, Advance and Charge they don't have access to, which is something you can use with the +2 to your charge stratagem in a combination. Could be pretty good on like 10 Terminators. Prescience, which is you have a reactive move of d6 outside of 8 inches, or if Divination is active, which is the one you will most likely be in because it's the reroll ones, you have a flat 6 reactive move. Can't go on Terminators, unfortunately, but once again, if your detachment doesn't have a good reactive move, maybe Firestorm or the Vanguard reactive move only works on charging, so this could be a way to get a normal reactive move into one of your Phobos units. It could be something. Obfuscation. The the unit is immune to snap shooting, which is Overwatch, and if you are in telepathy, which is the -1 strength, it is -3 detection range, so from 15 down to 12. I don't think this one is that useful because I can't really think of anything that wants this. The old way to get 18-inch Lone Op was way better with this because it meant you could have a Desolation Marine unit that couldn't be targeted with indirect shooting, which was obviously awesome. But now, if your indirect unit shoots, it is no longer hidden, and therefore the detection range just doesn't matter anymore. So, yeah, this one seems pretty bad. Temporal Corridor. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, you can take this unit into reserves. So you can go back into reserves with one of your units. And if the unit has the telekinesis discipline, the unit gets deep strike. This is obviously pretty awesome because if you have telekinesis, oh wait, telekinesis was -1. Oh, telepathy, excuse me, I got 2 mixed up. It happens, too many rules. So yeah, so you have the -1 strength active, which on the Vanguard Spearhead sounds pretty interesting because you have -1 strength and you are always in cover because of your detachment ability. That means it is more difficult to shoot you, and because you get the deep strike rule, if you put your unit back into reserves, they can then come back down anywhere on the board, 8 inches away, of course. But yeah, this could be something funny because lieutenants are now support, I believe. You could do something like play a librarian with this and a lieutenant in your squad. Let me confirm that. Lieutenants are support. Yes, lieutenants are support. So that means if you put a lieutenant and a librarian, which is now a leader, into the same unit, you could give them this enhancement, and then it's like 10 Hellblasters or something. You drop down, you shoot with your Hellblasters a bunch of lethal hit shots, and then you put them back into reserves. Seems decent. I don't hate that. And lastly, it is unchanged, of course. We have Fusillade, which gives your unit anti-monster vehicle 5+, and if the Pyromancy is active, which is the extra AP, you have sustained hits 1. I have to be honest, the sustained hits 1 part is not even that impressive. It has changed in one way. You can no longer get the extra 6 inches of range from telekinesis, I believe, was it? Because you had 2 abilities, because because Temporal Corridor didn't exist. So yeah, you don't have the option to get extra range, but this is obviously really, really good on Stern Guard veterans because they have full rerolls to wound against the oath target, which then means you can basically blow up any vehicle in the game. I have a hot take. I believe this combo, while it is good, is a bit overrated because one thing, your unit is basically trading for a vehicle, and if your opponent doesn't have that many like really big vehicles, this doesn't really do that much. So if your opponent has a melee army with like two support vehicles at most, this is kind of like two gladiator lancers in a Dark Angels army. Is this really that useful? I don't know. Maybe you just focus on the sustained hits and just kill infantry units then, and then you don't care about the anti-monster. Obviously, if your opponent plays something like knights, this is really strong, but it doesn't stack with your +1 to wound from Oath of Moment, which is obviously a problem. And you do have to finagle some stuff around. I think in Ultramarines, you need Uriel Ventris and or a drop pod, but drop pods are bad, so don't do that. In order to get all of your value out of this, out of this detachment here. What does the thing say? So the enhancements are Fusillade is 20 points, which is not that much, honestly. It's not that much. Celerity is 35, which is a lot for Advance and Charge. I think that probably makes it a bit too expensive, in my opinion, because you still have to put it on a Psyker model, which is obviously a problem because you need to attach a librarian to a unit for 60 points, and then it's like 95 points to give something Advance and Charge. I don't know about that one, but maybe. One thing to note about the Librarius Conclave, because of what detachments it pairs well into, is once again Reclamation Force, because one, Reclamation Force doesn't have a shooting buff, so just having Fusillade on Stern Guard makes them obviously really good at killing something at range, and then your army can just do the rest in combat, especially if you rely on a Blade Guard and Victrix Guard for your melee, because they don't need Oath of Moment that much because of the hitting on twos or hitting on threes with rerolls, something like that. It also means the Wardens of Ultramar have the Psychic keyword, so as long as you keep Cornelius alive, means your unit will be a Psycho unit. So you get access to the 5 disciplines on your unit, which also means if you build the Titus super unit, like 6 Blade Guard, the Wardens, and Titus, that is a 13 model unit with different ways of having a free wound model with an invuln and some armor and whatever else. And it is always -1 to wound in Rec Force because Titus is in the unit, which means if you add telekinesis to that, it is -1 strength against all incoming attacks and -1 to wound. That is a pretty mean combination because strength 4 attacks are going to wound you on 5s now, on 6s now. That is pretty rough. Like if you get shot by bolters, that they wound on 6s, that is pretty bad because 4 and 4 goes to 3 and 4 and then -1. That's pretty bad. So yeah, Liberius is a very worthwhile consideration, especially if you can use the Fusillade unit to do some damage. Just be aware, one of the things I did in the old Liberius in whenever I played it is I had the 30-inch range, shoot something with the mortal wounds and then have some fun. That doesn't work anymore because you have to get within 24, unfortunately. Lastly, we have Subversion Asset. This is a stealthy brothers and neophytes eliminate the first lurking threats. This sounds like it would be something like assassination, but it is actually another reconnaissance field disposition. So this one goes all in on scouts and phobos units and gives them the following rule. Phobos and scout squads have in your shooting phase, this unit can select one visible unit within 12, and then that unit is detected, and while it is detected, you get +3 detection range. Now, this means you can spot units from 18 away instead of 15 away, which is obviously pretty useful because it means if you play a gunline army that doesn't want to get too close, 18 inches is a lot of range, especially for your melter guns and stuff, which already have like 18 inches, like all of your melter rifles and multi-melters and stuff like that. They already have a 18-inch range, so getting a scout squad in or a four boss unit to spot them could be something useful. Enhancements. The Shroud Field. A 4-boss model only. It becomes lone operative and stealth. This is probably not worth taking because if you want a stealthy lone operative 4-boss model, the Combi Lieutenant is right there. I guess if you absolutely have to, you can put it on the 4-boss Captain in order to get your redeploys and shoot some precision shots at something, but I'm not really sure that is something you want to do. Death in the Dark is an upgrade, so this one goes on units. Infantry unit 4 boss only. This unit's attacks that target a hidden unit have +1 to hit rolls. This can be pretty funny because if you put this on a Reaver squad, the Reaver squad has +1 to hit in melee against anything that it hasn't shot yet. So if your opponent hasn't shot yet with something and you attack it with your upgraded Reavers, for example, you hit on 2s, which is it's not bad. It's also not that expensive. It's like 15 points. It's not that bad. Oh, funny how that works though. Your opponent can fire Overwatch in order to turn off your Death in the Dark, which is a bit funny. So yeah, if your opponent wants to have a +1 to if your opponent wants to Overwatch is basically a -1 to hit, and I'm also pretty sure you can Overwatch with something like Gene Stealers, which don't even have guns, just so they have shot. Technically, I don't know. We have adaptive operations. Excuse me. In your shooting phase, when a friendly scout unit starts an action, that action does not prevent your unit from being eligible to shoot. So you can shoot and do an action with a 4-boss or scout unit. I guess the one way you could use this is you could use this on a Invictor Warsuit or some Eliminators. Those are probably the hardest hitting shooting units with 4-boss. This could potentially be pretty good with Raven Guard because of Shrike, because Shrike makes every unit a 4-boss unit, but I don't really see how you could make that useful because 4-boss units don't really shoot that much. I guess it is good with incursors because you can shoot something to make it marked for the +1 to hit and then still do an action. Like you can cleanse and spot something for your army, and I guess that is something you could do. So yeah, I guess yeah, very niche, but could come in handy. Action and shoot is pretty good. I just wish you could use it on more things. Strike from the shadows. In your shooting phase, when a 4-boss or scout unit has shot, 1 CP, those range attacks do not prevent your unit from being hidden, so you can stay hidden and shoot. The one thing you could do with this is you run it with eliminators just to get the stationary buff for the death wounds, but I'm not really sure what to do with this. This seems a bit, I don't know. You probably don't want to shoot with a skirmish unit like this because you would rather be hidden and do an action than shoot a bunch of inconsequential bolt guns at something. Yeah, it doesn't work with the warsuit because the warsuit is not hidden, it's not infantry. That's what that is. Cloaked position, start of the opponent's movement phase, one friendly unengaged scout squad or 4-boss squad, your unit has -3 detection range, so it is now 12 instead of 15 inches. This is honestly kind of funny on infiltrators because that means if your opponent deep strikes in, they have to stay 12 away, and then they can't shoot your infiltrators because of this. So if you have hidden infiltrators, your opponent deep strikes, they can't shoot them. Very situational, but this could be something that comes up. And I would rather spend 1 command point than the 60, 70 points on the Phobos Librarian. So overall, I think this is probably one you don't want to use unless you have a very interesting plan. It doesn't combo that well with Vanguard because you already have reconnaissance as your field disposition. So I can see it for Raven Guard players, but again, we are in Ultramarines. This could be useful for Ironstorm because you would have some extra in detection range on your guns or something, and potentially, I don't know. This I don't know. This is like if you want to build a recon list, all of the up down kind of stuff. This could be what you want to use. So, what is my opinion on putting all three of these together? I don't think that would be a good list. I think these three support vastly different types of units, and you end up with a bunch of like really mediocre strats and units. I don't think that would be worth doing. Next, we go to the new data sheet. So let's go eradicators. How do we wait? Why do we? So eradicators with we go to eradicators with heavy bolters. So here we have a new unit. App, please. There we go. All right. Excuse the lag here. So these are some new data sheets. Here we have eradicators with heavy bolters. Here we go. The heavy bolter is heavy. Someone on Discord said it's not heavy, but that's obviously a lie. It is heavy. So yeah, we have a unit of eradicators, which is the same Gravis Marine stats we all know and love. So there is movement 5, toughness 6, 3 up save, 3 wounds, leadership, OC, how it works. They have a bolt pistol and a heavy bolter with sustained hits, of course. So it is heavy. It's not assault. So the heavy intercessors, heavy bolter can advance and shoot. The heavy bolter in this squad cannot. However, it has a special rule. Overlapping detonations, if you select a unit that is not a monster or vehicle and visible to shoot at, all of your weapons, all of your heavy bolters have blast 1. This is obviously pretty funny because that means if you shoot at a unit of 10 models, instead of having 9 shots, you now have 15. You get 6 extra shots. So that is honestly pretty good. So if you only move 3 inches, you have +1 to hit because of heavy. So you essentially negate cover, kind of. So they basically ignore cover. If you actually ignore cover, it gets even better. And it's a 2 damage AP1 gun, which is much better in this edition. However, the reason why I think this unit is pretty good is they are 70 points for your first 2, and the third one would be 80 points. So don't bring more than 2, in my opinion, but this is a 70-point model unit, and I think they are so much better than something like suppressors or even scouts, kind of. I mean, they don't do as much mission play, but they are pretty tough for being 70 points. I think this unit is actually amazing. I will definitely try these out in some of my lists. I don't think they're good in Rec Force or something, but they're obviously good in Gladius. I want to try these guys in Anvil Siege Force. I think they would be my skirmish unit of choice in Anvil Siege Force. Unfortunately, you can't take a unit of 6. You can only run them in 3. So yeah, you can run 6 of them for like 140. Doesn't work. Unfortunately not, because they would obviously be pretty fun to buff with some stratagems, but as a skirmish unit, I think these guys are fine. And moving 3 instead of 5, it's like not the end of the world. They weren't that fast to begin with. So that's what that is. Next we have the Land Speeder. The Land Speeder is awesome. Here we go. The Land Speeder has movement 14, toughness 8, a 3-up save, 9 wounds, and OC 3. OC 3 is pretty good for such a small model. I think the Invader ATV only has OC 2. 14-inch move is really good. It has the fly keyword, so if you move 12, you can just jump over terrain. You pick either the Onslaught Gatling Cannon or the Heavy Flamer. You always take the Gatling Cannon, in my opinion, because Devastating Wounds can help do some extra damage against your Oath of Moment target or against whatever you want to shoot with the Melter Gun. It has Deep Strike, so you can make use of all of your detachment abilities from the Fulgurist Force, and it has Purgation Run. In your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, it can make a normal move of up to D6. Until the end of the turn, it is not eligible to declare a charge. Now, important to note, if you come out of Deep Strike, you can't do a move and shoot, because coming out of making an Ingress move prevents you from doing a different move in the same phase. Obviously, not the greatest thing to happen. And d6 is a bit awkward because if you roll a 1, that always means you are just not doing very much. So the way you play this is you basically just pull the butt of the speeder from behind a wall to get line of sight. And then if you roll a 1, you just pivot because pivoting is free. You just turn the speeder around and move it like 1 inch back in order to just get out of the line of sight here. So yeah, move, shoot, move is pretty good. You have multiple weapons with d6 damage. And again, it's 95 points, which isn't cheap, but it's not expensive either. It's like very moderately costed. I think 2 land speeders and 2 hammer strikes make a very solid core of any Fulgur's attachment to existing lists. And I think that runs you at how much is the hammer strike? Just so I can get it out of my system. Hammer strike is Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. I'm looking at H for Hammer Strike. Storm Speeder Hammer Strike is 130. It got 5 points more expensive. I don't think that's that bad. Yeah. That's not that bad. The third one costs you 140. I don't think you need 4. So I think you take 2 hammer strikes and 2 land speeders. That's 260 plus 190. So that is 450 points. So a good quarter of your list for 4 vehicles that are fast, mobile, and you get a bunch of reactive moves and ignore cover stuff. Maybe you pay 30 points more to give the hammer strikes ignore cover, and then that's what that is. Technically, you could upgrade your land speeder with the reroll damage and reroll shot count, and then give them the heavy flamer instead of the onslaught gatling cannon. But I don't think that is worth doing unless you were going for something like Fulgur's Task Force with Forge Father Seekers, and then you play with Vulcan Heston so you can get some death wounds from the flamethrower. I could possibly be worth it. I don't know. And yeah, that's what that is. Important enough, I don't think the Vanguard veterans are in this document here. No, they are not. I believe. Nope, they are not. They didn't add the rule on the company, excuse me, on the wardens here, but important thing to the wardens, they are now support, which means the wardens have to lead something or they can't be deployed. So the days are gone for the wardens to be a really tough little unit. You now actually have to attach them to something, which I believe makes them a lot less commonly seen. You only play these if you have a plan, and that plan probably includes the Librarius Conclave because they are a Psycho unit. As long as Daniel Cornelius is alive, you have the Psycho keyword. So yeah, that is something you can do. Now we go over some rules updates, and again, I'm just gonna read the simple things, just stuff I spotted. Vanguard is now cover instead of -1 to hit, which makes Vanguard a lot worse. And I do think Vanguard is actually bad now, but maybe I can make it work. I'll have to try. Squad tactics. Squad tactics. So the stratagem in Gladius, the reactive move is now 8 inches instead of 9 inches. The other changes are like normal. There is something about the Vect rules. They only work in once per game now instead of all the time. That makes Tigurius and the Combi Lieutenant with the enhancement a lot worse. Tigurius can no longer use Go to Ground for free because Go to Ground doesn't exist. And a bunch of units got changed keywords. For example, the frame keyword, which is basically the same as hull back in the day, and the Stormraven gunship is now movement 14 instead of 20, but it is not aircraft, which means the Stormraven, because it has the hover rule, it can just fly over terrain as if it wasn't there, and it now moves 14, which technically is slower, but I have noticed in practice, because in practice you always had to like measure up and down, like 2 inches up, 2 inches down on some terrain pieces. You like moved 16 instead of 18 if you fly in like a different way, and you can pivot for free now. So that is something you can do. So I think this is actually pretty good for the Storm Raven. Unfortunately, Stormlands has a pretty bad disposition with disruption, but maybe you can make something work. And yeah, that's basically all of that. And then there is here company heroes, nothing. So I don't think there's much here. Yeah, the intercessor ability is now changed to you can now split fire and get your extra shots, but you only get the extra shots against the thing you split fired. Just something like that. If there's something else here that is important, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Oriel Ventress caught another nerf, as I told you. The Vect Aura doesn't change much, but yeah, most of this is just reactive moves are now 8 inches, and deep strikes are also now 8 inches, and the obviously the rules of how blood surges work are a bit of a nerf to Victrix Guard, because Victrix Guard, you have to move all of your models closer to the enemy instead of just being closer in total, which allowed you to do some stuff like I'm moving one of my guys into combat with you, and the other 5 guys are gonna go on the objective, and that no longer works. So yeah, so this would be my review for the Space Marine faction pack. Tell me, are you excited for any of these small little detachments here, the Fulguris and the maybe the Labarius? Tell me if you have a use for the subversion assets, if you want to play with some scouts. I do believe if you do try to build a recon list in Marines, that is probably how you would do it. You would probably go with the subversion assets here, but I wouldn't know. With that said, courage and honor, Battle Brothers. I'll see you back in the next 11th edition video.